Hi, how you doing and welcome back to a video on the channel. Bit of a different video today. We're thinking of starting during the week where we look at players who have either been highly transferred in by a lot of teams or highly transferred out by a lot of teams, and then we discuss whether I do it for my own team if I was in that position and whether you should do it for your team as well. If you like the thought of that sort of video, please do like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new. We are a small channel trying to grow and we're closing in on 200 subscribers, so if you can help with that, it would be really appreciated. Let's take a look at the first player. So the first player we're going to get on the screen is Quansah from Liverpool. Now, he's not very highly owned overall, but I think he is quite highly owned within sort of serious managers, I would say. People who put a lot of thought into their team, because he did look to be a bit of a bargain price at 4.5 million and played for Liverpool, who are typically going to finish nearer the top of the league than the bottom of the league, you would think. So the reason that he's getting transferred out by a lot of teams is because he got hooked at half-time in the latest Liverpool game, the first game week of the season. And the reason for that was because the team weren't winning many battles in the air. So what that leads to is, should we look at the fixtures and think about which games he will play in the future and which games he might not play in the future? Because if your opposition for Liverpool is a team that like to get it on the floor and pass it, maybe like an Arsenal or a Chelsea, he's more likely to play. If they're playing a team like a Nottingham Forest, maybe a Brentford, who maybe like to get the ball high into a target man, he's probably less likely to play. Now, I think at 4.5 million, I wouldn't transfer him out of my team. I wouldn't use my only free transfer in Game Week 1 to remove a 4.5 million defender. I think where you might do that is if he's taking up a Liverpool slot, where you would want to free that up for someone like a Jota, a Trent, maybe a Salah even, in the near future, and you want to sort of get Liverpool assets in your team that way. But even if he plays half the games and doesn't play half the games, I think at 4.5 million, he's not a problem to have on your bench. Most of your bench players will be 4 or 4.5 million. That's just how the best way of spreading your funds in FPL works. So I think if you have him in your team and when the fixtures are right, you just put him into your starting lineup at 4.5 million, I think he's a really good value player still to have in your team. And I wouldn't be rushing to get him out just yet. I would maybe look at a bigger sample size, because if he'd made it to the 60-minute mark in the Ipswich game and got a clean sheet as well, you'd be looking at him on 6 points and thinking, oh, there's no real need to transfer him out. So those small margins, don't let it affect your mindset and your transfer approach too much. The next player we're going to look at is Nkunku from Chelsea. Now, he actually has been sold by 55,000 managers, give or take. He's still quite highly owned. If you have him in your team, the thing I would ask is, why did you have him in your team in the first place? Because it wasn't for the Man City game in Game Week 1, which, he didn't play very long, and that's probably why people are selling him. But you will have got him in your team because of these fixtures coming up now. So give him chance. He's not someone that I would necessarily buy into my team, although I think he's still could be a good fantasy option. But if I had him, I definitely wouldn't be selling him right now. I'd be looking at that Wolves, Palace, Bournemouth games. And by the end of those 4 game weeks, if he's not still performing, if he's looking like he's not playing very much, then I'd look at taking him out then. But at 6.5 million, he's not a huge hold in your transfer budget as of now. Now, one other thing would be just to keep an eye on who Chelsea buy and sell for the rest of the transfer window and how that would affect someone like Nkunku's minutes. But I think I would hold him for these next few game weeks. So the player we're going to look at next, who has been sold by a lot of players, actually been sold by the most managers so far, is Ollie Watkins. Now, he's still 34.2% owned. And again, he didn't do that well as people would have hoped in Game Week 1. But really going into Game Week 1, there was a question mark whether he would play at all. He's missed a lot of pre-season because of international duties, only just coming back. So the fact that he only played a half, give or take, wasn't too much of a surprise. And it would be really nice for him to have an attacking return to show for that in Game Week 1. And he is the second most expensive striker in FPL. So I do kind of get why people are maybe rushing to sell him. But it's a bit like Nkunku. Those fixtures coming up, Leicester, Everton, Wolves, Ipswich, they're great fixtures for Ollie Watkins. And at that point, he should be up to speed and playing 90 minutes. You can maybe question how Champions League might impact his fixtures moving forward and how much he's going to play in the team. But I do think for the time being, he is a good option. I wouldn't buy him in this game week with Arsenal at home, but I would buy him in for Leicester City away. I think he's a good option to get in. So if you own him and you can last another week without needing to transfer him out, I absolutely would do. But I do also understand that you might want to free up some transfer funds for other strikers in your team. The first player we're going to look at who's been transferred in by a lot of managers is Mazra from Man United. Now, he kind of caught everyone by surprise, I guess, in Game Week 1 because he ended up with 3 bonus points as well as a clean sheet. Now, Man United going to keep loads of clean sheets over the season. They might keep some, but probably not loads. You would think between 10 and 12-ish for the course of the season. At 4.5 million, though, he is a good value player. And I can understand a lot of players maybe doing Quansah to Mazraoui in their Game Week 1 transfer, but I'm not sure I'd use up my transfer again on bringing in a 4.5 million defender. You've probably got already some of those, and you have to think at that price, how much are you expecting clean sheets and attacking returns and bonus points from your defenders? For my team, specifically, I had Raya and Gvardiol in my team. They both got clean sheets, but I was hoping for that because they're high-end, expensive options for their positions. My 2 4.5 million defenders didn't keep a clean sheet, but that's okay because I'm not expecting them to every game week. It doesn't mean I'm going to rush them out for Mazraoui, because Mazraoui could also not keep a clean sheet against Brighton or Liverpool. And then what am I going to do? I'm going to look at transferring in another 4.5 million defender who has just kept a clean sheet. You can't really play at FPL like that. You've got to look at it from a bit of a bigger point of view and not be point chasing too much. I do understand why people would get him in, especially if you're maybe moving off a more expensive defender for a cheaper option to get funds elsewhere. But for me, I wouldn't rush in too much. I would maybe just look and see how Man United perform, maybe up to the Liverpool game, and then possibly looking at getting him in for Southampton and Palace. So the next player we're looking at getting in, who has been transferred in by a lot of managers, is Havertz. Now, for me, Havertz would have been a good option in pre-season. Some people were sort of asking us, what about Gabriel Jesus? Is he going to play? And we sort of said, well, Havertz is very much likely to start for Arsenal because that's how Arteta played all last season, and there's no real reason for that to change. The only reason that would change is if someone like Ivan Toney came into Arsenal. Now, I don't actually think they will sign someone like Ivan Toney. I think they're quite likely just to stay as it is because they believe in Havertz. So as a mid to long-term pick, he looks really good, and I would absolutely not hesitate in buying him in. I think he's a great option in FPL. I can maybe understand why people are possibly selling Watkins to Havertz. That looks like a really, enticing move moving forward. What I will say is that Villa, Spurs, and Man City in the next 4, all away from home, are tricky fixtures. So again, in that time, Watkins has really good fixtures. Havertz has really tricky fixtures. Could you last until the end of Game Week 5 with Watkins and then bring in Havertz for the Leicester City, Southampton and Bournemouth games? That could be maybe a bit more of a mid to long term plan, because if you get someone like Havertz in, a bit like what we said with Mazraoui, and he doesn't score against Aston Villa away, are you going to want to transfer him out again? Because you at some point you have to start banking transfers to have more of a greater impact on your team. But overall, I think he's a great FPL player. The last player we're going to look at today is Danny Welbeck, who has actually been brought in by 110,000 managers, ish. And for me, I thought I'd put him in this video because it's quite surprising. I think really what this is a lot of people moving from João Pedro to Welbeck. I just wouldn't make that transfer. I wouldn't use my one free transfer on getting Danny Welbeck into my fantasy league team. I think you look at those fixtures and, yeah, Brighton surprised us a little bit in Game Week 1, but I can't really see lots of attacking returns for Danny Welbeck moving forward. I think he's got a couple of nice fixtures in there, but the difficult fixtures really do outweigh them quite a lot. I would much rather roll a transfer than use it on getting in any Brighton attacker. I think if you have João Pedro in your team already, well, you knew the fixtures coming into this, so I'd maybe just keep him in your team and hope he has a bit more of a game time, bit more of a rotational impact. You never know, maybe an attacking return or two. But I think moving from him to Danny Welbeck, or maybe moving from anyone to Danny Welbeck, is just not a great long-term move looking at the fixtures. So let me know what you think. Let me know if there's any players you're thinking of considering getting in your team or getting out your team. And if you want my opinion for what it's worth, I'm more than happy to give it. If you put your questions in the comments, I'll answer it. Please do like and subscribe to the channel. It really is appreciated. Go check out our latest Wildcard Team video if you haven't seen that already. The link will be on the screen right about now, and I will see you in the next one.